Welcome back to Pelangi 21. Today I will show you a Canadian drama film from 2020 titled Saint Narcisse. A young man named Dominic does the laundry at the laundromat. He flirts with a girl, and they make love. Suddenly several people gather outside the laundromat. Dominic looks outside, and sees a young man who looks like him. Then he wakes up, and realizes that it's just a dream. At home, he finds his grandmother sleeping in front of the TV. He takes his grandmother to her room, and he notices a jewelry box belonging to his grandmother. Later, he takes picture of himself, and stares at his own reflection in the mirror. The following day, he finds that his grandmother has died in her bed. He remembers the words from her. She asked when will Dominic get married, because what he needed was a family. Dominic releases his grief by getting drunk at a bar. Outside, he meets a girl who warns him that if he wants to live longer, he better not to find out about himself. At home, Dominic finds a key in an envelope left by his grandmother. He realizes that it's the key to her jewelry box. Inside, he finds a coin, a knife, and some letters. The letters were from a woman named Beatrice. Beatrice wrote that she realized Dominic was her living son. She hoped one day to meet him. Dominic gets on his motorbike to look for Beatrice. He arrives at a place called Saint Narcisse at night. He set up a tent in the cemetery, and finds a tombstone with his name on it. The next day, he goes to a restaurant to eat. He asks the waitress about Beatrice. She says Beatrice is a witch who lives with a young woman in the middle of the forest. Rumor has it they can't age. Dominic asks her for directions to Beatrice's house. When leaving the restaurant, he meets a group of monks. He feels that one of them is the young man he had seen in his dreams. Dominic pulls one of them, and he realizes that he is not the young man he saw in his dreams. Suddenly he is reprimanded by an abbot named Andrew, and he tells him not to bother the monks. Dominic continues his journey to Beatrice's house. He doesn't see anyone there. A girl named Irene comes out from inside the house, and she's pointing a gun at him. She asks the reason for his coming. Dominic says he's looking for Beatrice. Irene replies Beatrice will be back in a few hours. Dominic is willing to wait, and Irene allows him, as long as he doesn't touch anything. While waiting, Dominic showers outside. Irene sees him, and tells him to put his clothes back on. Dominic asks her not to point a gun at him. While they are arguing, Beatrice has returned, and shoots a gun in the air. Beatrice sees Dominic, and realizes that Dominic is her son. They hug to release the longing. After that, Beatrice invites Dominic to come inside and eat. Dominic gives a coin as proof that he is indeed her son. He asks why his grandmother is hiding a secret from him. Beatrice says that his grandmother is stubborn just like his father. She feels grateful to be able to meet her son, even though Irene still doubts him. Their argument is stopped by Beatrice, who tells Dominic to rest after a long journey. An annoyed Irene goes to her room. Dominic feels a little guilty, and he decides to find an inn in the village. But Beatrice assures him that he is at home, and he will always be welcome there. She leads him to a room she had prepared. There are several paintings in the room. She recounts how she pursued painting to divert her sadness after losing him. She also tried to connect with nature, and used some kind of black magic to summon him. Dominic says he has a lot of things to talk about, but Beatrice tells him to rest, and she will tell Irene that he will be staying there. Later, he is woken up by Irene, who invites him to hunt. Irene says if he wants to eat, then he has to find his own food. They still argue while hunting. Dominic tries to ask about Irene's background, but she doesn't want to answer him. Over dinner, Beatrice finally tells Dominic about her past. Beatrice, who was pregnant with Dominic, having a love affair with a woman named Abbot. Abbot already had a baby named Irene. It wasn't long before Dominic's father discovered their relationship, but he remained silent until the day Dominic was born. He told Beatrice that Dominic died at birth. After that, Dominic's father and Abbot's husband divorced Beatrice and Abbot. Beatrice was sure that Dominic's still alive. One night, she and Abbot decided to dig up Dominic's grave, and found no body there. Dominic asks why she didn't visit him when his father died. Beatrice says she couldn't do it, because she and Abbot have been ostracized by the villagers. All she could do was write a letter out of desperation. Dominic thinks Beatrice should try harder to find him. He also can't accept his mother's past, who left his father for a woman. The next day, Beatrice notices Dominic and Irene getting closer, while they are repairing the car. When Dominic goes out, Irene goes to his room and finds some pictures of him. She takes one of the pictures, but Beatrice enters and startles her. She asks Irene to return the picture. Irene gives it back while saying Dominic only took pictures of himself, and she finds Dominic very strange. Dominic goes to the monastery alone. He spies the monks with binoculars. He notices one of the monks looks like the young man he had seen in his dreams, and his name is Daniel. Daniel realizes a young man is looking at him. Dominic, who is caught, immediately leaves from there. Daniel comes to Andrew's office. He says life in the monastery is boring. Andrew shows that he has special feelings for Daniel, and tries to touch him, but Daniel refuses him. Then Daniel tells him that he saw a young man spying on him. Andrew thinks Daniel is dreaming. Daniel insists that he saw the young man, but Andrew becomes angry and tells him to obey him. Dominic returns to Beatrice's house. He finds that the house is empty. He goes to Irene's room and sees a picture of Beatrice and Abbot. He is surprised by Irene, and she tells him to get out. Dominic says that she has a face similar to her mother. Outside, Beatrice tells the story of how 7 years ago Abbot fell ill and died. Abbot still couldn't forget about her daughter. Then she wrote Irene a letter, and Irene came a few days later. Beatrice and Dominic are talking without knowing Irene is listening. Beatrice loves Irene like her own daughter, and doesn't want her to get hurt. Later, Dominic shaves his face and his hair, and it makes him look like Daniel. He takes a picture of himself, then touches himself while looking at the picture. Irene sees Dominic through the window. Meanwhile at the monastery, Daniel is abused by Andrew. The next day, Irene meets Dominic, who is repairing the car. She asks him to go for a walk with her. During that moment, she tells him about her life with Beatrice, and asks if he has made up with Beatrice. She feels Beatrice is like a mother to her. When she is about to kiss him, Dominic pulls away. Daniel and the monks go to the lake to swim. Dominic is spying on them from a distance, but he falls asleep leaning against a tree. Daniel sees Dominic and approaches him. When Dominic wakes up, he finds that Daniel is beside him. He notices Daniel, who looks a lot like him. He will touch Daniel to prove he is not dreaming, but Daniel runs away. Dominic chases after him and stops him. Daniel says that he must return to the monastery soon, but he will meet him again tomorrow at the same place and time. Dominic takes Daniel's picture as proof that he's real. Daniel then kisses him, and says that this kiss is clear proof that he exists. Later, Dominic tells about his meeting with Daniel. But Beatrice and Irene don't believe him. Irene thinks that it was his imagination, because he has a narcissistic personality. Beatrice decides to sleep first, and leaves Irene and Dominic alone. Dominic is still trying to convince her that he has a twin brother named Daniel. She still can't believe him, because Beatrice didn't know that she had twins. He tries to show Daniel's picture, but she thinks it's Dominic's. She tries to kiss him again, but he refuses her. The next day, Andrew receives a report from another monk, that yesterday Daniel had been missing for a while. He forbids Daniel to go out, and Daniel gets annoyed. Andrew says he's doing this for his own good. Daniel has made a promise to Dominic, and he's trying to find an excuse to leave. Andrew tells Daniel to obey him, and says Daniel is the reincarnation of Saint Sebastian who was sent by God to him. They kneels under the statue of Saint Sebastian to pray to him. Andrew is obsessed with Saint Sebastian, and he kisses the feet of the statue of Saint Sebastian. Daniel sneaks out secretly to meet Dominic. They stare at each other. Then they kiss and make love. After that, Daniel tells him he was raised by nuns. He heard that his mother died while giving birth to him, and he had a twin brother separated from him. Dominic says that their mother is still alive, and he invites him to see Beatrice. But Daniel can't go, because he is afraid of Andrew. He tells him about what Andrew did to him. Dominic and Daniel decide to swap clothes. Daniel returns to Beatrice's house and meets Irene. She apologizes to him for yesterday, without knowing that it's Daniel. She tries to kiss him, and he kisses her back. When he tells her that he is Dominic's twin brother, she becomes angry, because she feels fooled. Just then, Beatrice returns and finds Daniel. She realizes that he is Dominic's twin brother. Meanwhile, Dominic goes to the monastery as Daniel. He plans to kill Andrew for what he did to Daniel. Prior to that, Dominic asks the reason Andrew likes Daniel. Andrew says that Daniel's enthusiasm always caught his attention. He feels that Daniel has an emptiness in his heart, and he likes Daniel's attractive physical appearance. Dominic says that he wants to leave the monastery, but Andrew forbids him to go, with the reason that God has chosen this path for him. Moreover, he has no other family. But Dominic still decides to go. Andrew realizes his mistake. He feels that he's too hard on him, so he tries to apologize. Then he tells Dominic to get some wine, while discussing this further. But Dominic doesn't know where Andrew keeps his wine. Andrew becomes suspicious, and gets them some wine. He puts sleeping powder in Dominic's drink. When Dominic wakes up, He finds that he has been tied up. Andrew already knows if he pretends to be Daniel. Dominic says that Daniel won't return. Andrew angrily replies that he won't be able to replace Daniel, because Daniel is the reincarnation of Saint Sebastian who was sent by God to him. He drinks so much wine that he becomes drunk. He begins to see Dominic as Daniel. He starts hurting Dominic, who he mistakes for Daniel. He says that if he dies then they will be united in eternity. Meanwhile, Daniel informs Beatrice and Irene about what happened, and they quickly drive to the monastery to save Dominic. On the way, Irene and Daniel make up and they kiss. After arriving at the monastery, Daniel immediately goes inside and stops Andrew from killing Dominic. Andrew is confused after seeing Daniel. In a drunken state, he can't tell Daniel and Dominic apart. Daniel distracts Andrew by saying that he is the chosen one, and he is the reincarnation of Saint Sebastian. Meanwhile, Dominic manages to break free and grabs a knife, then stabs Andrew in the back. In his dying state, Andrew says that he loves Daniel very much. Then Daniel immediately helps Dominic to get out of there. Meanwhile, a priest finds Andrew's body lying under the statue of Saint Sebastian. After that, Daniel lives with Dominic, Beatrice, and Irene. The four of them are in a polyamorous love relationship while raising their child. The film presents an interpretation of the Greek myth about Narcissus, a handsome young man who fell in love with his own reflection. In this film depicted as Dominic and Daniel, two identical twins who were separated at birth. Dominic had always dreamed of Daniel all along. Until one day, Dominic found his twin brother at the monastery. Dominic is always spying on Daniel, and when their eyes first met, it was love and lust at first sight. Dominic is determined to save his lover twin brother from the evil priest. What I like about this film is the stunning acting from the actor who played Dominic and Daniel, because I could feel the intimacy and sexual tension from the look in his eyes. This film provides another picture of a love story with an unusual storyline. I have to admit the story is a bit confusing, and may not make sense to the audience. I found the whole film a bit boring, slow-paced, and has meaningless dialogue. It seems that the film is too ambitious, mixing various themes in an eccentric way. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe, and turn on notification.